Maid stole the Mafia boss's money to save his sick daughter. What happened next shocked everyone. My life was measured in the sharp scent of bleach and the dull smell of antiseptic. One meant I was earning. The other meant I was spending. I was Alina Marlowe, and I scrubbed the floors of Manhattan's elite so I could afford the hospital bills that kept my daughter, Emily, alive. Emily was 6 years old, and she knew more about IV drips than she did about playgrounds. She had a rare blood disorder, a cruel, invisible monster that had moved into her small body and refused to leave. This last time, the doctors called it complications. That's what they said when the monster was winning. She was back at Mount Sinai, and I was working 3 jobs just to keep the lights on in our tiny Queens apartment, let alone pay for the medicine. My newest job, the one that paid the most, was cleaning a penthouse in a new, sterile glass tower overlooking the river. It belonged to a man named Luca DeSantis. I never saw him. That was the first rule. I was interviewed by a woman named Mrs. Petrov, who had a face like granite and looked at my resume like it was a piece of trash I had tracked in. "You're here from 6 p.m. until midnight, Tuesday and Friday," she had informed me. Her voice clipped. "You will clean the common areas, the kitchen, and the guest wing. You are never, under any circumstances, to enter the master wing or Mr. DeSantis's private study. The cleaning zones are marked. You do not touch anything outside those zones. You do not look at personal papers. You do not answer the phone. You are a ghost. Do you understand?" I understood. I understood the $35 an hour. I understood that this one job paid more than my other 2 combined. I would have scrubbed the ceilings with a toothbrush if she had asked. The apartment was cold, not in temperature but in spirit. It was all chrome, black leather and glass, a place designed to be photographed, not lived in. There were no pictures on the walls, no books on the shelves. The only people I ever saw were the other ghosts, a private chef who never spoke, and 2 men in dark suits who stood by the elevator. The fear in that apartment was thick enough to taste. The chef would flinch if a pot lid clattered. The suited men watched me, their eyes sweeping my body for I did not know what. They all talked about Luca DeSantis in whispers, or not at all. "He's in real estate," one of the day shift doormen had told me, but he had looked away when he said it. The kitchen staff I passed in the service elevator. They said other things. They said he was the new boss. They said the old one, Don Moretti, had retired to the bottom of the ocean. They said Luca DeSantis was not a man you spilled things in front of. I did not care, and he could have been the king of hell. I just wanted the paycheck. I scrubbed the marble floors, polished the glass tables that no one ever used, and counted the minutes until I could take the subway back to the hospital to read Emily a story. Then came the phone call. I was wiping down a stainless steel countertop that had not a single fingerprint on it when my cheap phone vibrated in my pocket. It was Dr. Aris. "Alina," he said, and his voice was heavy. I left the penthouse, lied to the suited men that I was sick, and ran the 6 blocks to the subway, my heart a cold stone in my chest. I found Dr. Aris in the pediatric wing, outside Emily's room. She was asleep, her small face pale against the white pillow, a tube taped to her tiny hand. "The current treatment isn't holding," he said, getting straight to it. He was a good man, but a tired one. "Her numbers are dropping fast. We've been seeing this complication. There is another option, an experimental protocol. It's aggressive, but the results from the trials are promising." "Okay," I said, my voice shaking. "Yes, whatever it is, do it." He looked down at his clipboard, and I knew what was coming next. The look, the one that said, "I am sorry, but this is a business." "Alina, the treatment is specialized. The hospital foundation doesn't cover this protocol. It requires a deposit before we can even order the medication." "How much?" I whispered. "The deposit is $25,000. The words just hung in the air. $25,000. It was not a number. It was a wall. It was a mountain. It was the rest of my life. I do not have it," I said, the words tasting like ash. "You have to find it," he said, his eyes filled with a sad, clinical pity. "Immediately. If we do not start the new round of treatment within the next 48 hours, her condition will worsen rapidly." I spent the next day in a fog of panic. I went to my bank. The loan officer, a young man who looked like he had never missed a meal, smiled sadly. "Mrs. Marlowe, based on your income and your existing medical debt, I'm afraid you have no collateral. There's nothing I can do." I tried a payday loan office. The man behind the glass partition offered me $500 at an interest rate that made me feel sick. I swallowed my pride and called my ex-husband, Emily's father, a man who had not seen his daughter in 3 years. His phone was disconnected. I applied for 12 different medical charities online. The answer was the same. "We are processing your request. The waiting list is currently 6 to 9 months." I had 48 hours. That night, I went back to the penthouse. The bleach smelled sharper, the silence heavier. I moved through the empty rooms like a sleepwalker, my mind racing. 25,000, 25,000. It was almost 11 p.m. I was in Luca DeSantis's office. This was a forbidden zone, but Mrs. Petrov had left a note. "Mr. DeSantis is out of the country. A water pipe leaked. Clean the floor in the study and dust the furniture. Do not touch the desk." The office was even colder than the rest of the apartment. A massive desk of dark wood faced a window that looked down on all of Manhattan. The leak had been a small ring of condensation from a glass on a side table. I wiped it up. I started vacuuming the thick, expensive rug. I was tired. My hands were shaking from the panic, my eyes blurring with tears I refused to let fall. I was thinking about Emily. I was thinking about the bank. I was not thinking about my job. I moved the vacuum backward, catching the leg of the cord on a tall, narrow cabinet made of dark, polished wood. I pulled, and the cord snagged. I yanked it, frustrated, and the heavy, upright vacuum cleaner toppled sideways. It crashed against the cabinet with a sick, echoing thud. I froze. My heart stopped. I was fired. I was definitely fired. I rushed to check for damage, my hands flying. The cabinet was fine, not even a scratch. But the jolt had done something. A drawer I had not even seen, set flush into the side of the cabinet near the floor, had popped open. It was unlocked. I stared at it. Close it and walk away. "Mrs." Petrov's voice was in my head. "You are a ghost." I knelt. I told myself I was just checking for damage inside. There were no files. There were no whiskey bottles. It was full of money. Cash, wrapped in simple paper bands, stacks and stacks of $100 bills. It was more money than I'd ever seen in my life. It was more money than my father made in 10 years. It was an impossible amount. I could hear my own breathing, loud and ragged in the silent room. He'll never notice. The thought came out of nowhere, sharp and clear. This man, this real estate mogul, this was not his savings. This was not his child's college fund. This was something else. This was nothing to him. 25,000. My daughter's life was $25,000. I looked at the ocean of cash in the drawer, and he would not notice. He could not. It was just a handful, a small amount, skimmed from the top. My hand was shaking so violently I had to grab it with my other. I was not a thief. I paid my bills. I returned my shopping carts. I was a good person. But Emily was a good person, too, and she was 6. I did not count. I plunged my hand in and grabbed 1, 2, 3, 4 bundles. They felt thick and heavy in my palm. I shoved them deep into the waistband of my scrub pants, the coarse paper scratching my skin. I slammed the drawer shut. It clicked, disappearing back into the wood grain. I grabbed the vacuum. I finished the rug, my movements robotic, my whole body buzzing with a cold, electric terror. I clocked out at midnight, nodding to the suited men by the elevator. They looked straight through me. I was a ghost, after all. I did not take the subway. I took a cab straight to Mount Sinai, the first cab I had taken in a year. The bundles were a hot, terrible weight against my stomach. The billing office was closed, but the emergency admittance desk was open. I walked up to the woman, her face tired in the fluorescent light. "I need to make a deposit," I said. My voice was a croak. "For Emily Marlowe, for the new treatment protocol." She started typing. "The deposit is $25,000. We cannot schedule—" I pulled the bundles out and put them on the counter. The woman's eyes went wide. She stopped typing. She looked at the money, then at me, in my cheap coat and my worn-out sneakers. She picked up the first bundle. She did not count it. She just looked at the band. "This is... Alina, there are 4 bundles here. This is $20,000. My heart sank. I was short. Even when I stole, I failed. "Please," I begged, the tears finally coming, hot and fast. "It's all I have. It's the deposit. Please, just take it. I'll get the rest. I promise. Just schedule her. Please, she does not have time." The woman looked at me for a long, silent moment. She looked at the money. Then she looked back at her screen. She sighed. A long, weary sound. $20,000 is enough to secure the medication," she said quietly, typing. We can bill the remaining 5. She typed for another minute. The sound of the keys was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. "She's scheduled," the woman said, not looking at me. "Dr. Eris will be paged. They will start prepping her for urgent care, 7 a.m. "Thank you," I whispered. It was not enough. It would never be enough. I ran from the desk, back to the pediatric wing. The penthouse was silent when Luca DeSantis returned. He had not been out of the country. He had been in a soundproof basement in Staten Island, confirming that his retirement plan for the Moretti family was complete. Gio, his lieutenant, was waiting for him in the study. Gio was a man of few words and absolute loyalty. He held a leather satchel. "The payment for the Serbians is ready," Gio said. His voice was flat, like gravel. "Good," Luca said. He loosened his tie, his eyes on the city lights below. "I went to the office cabinet to bundle the transport fee," Gio continued. "The incidentals." Luca stopped. He turned, very slowly. "And we're short," Gio said. $20,000. The silence that filled the room was heavy and cold. Luca DeSantis did not like surprises. He did not tolerate mistakes, and he never, ever came up short. "Who was here?" Luca's voice was soft. "Dangerous." "Just the new maid, the night shift." Luca walked past Gio, out of the study and into the small, hidden security room behind the main hall. He did not need Gio to show him. He typed in the code, and the wall of monitors flickered to life. "File access. Yesterday, 2100 hours." Luca ordered the computer. The footage appeared. He saw the woman, Alina Marlowe, and he had read her file. Single mother, sick kid, desperate. He watched her vacuum. He watched her stumble. He watched the cabinet fall, and his eyes narrowed. He had not known about that drawer. It was from the previous owner. He watched her freeze. "There," Luca said, mostly to himself. He watched her internal war. He saw her hand hover. He saw the tears on her face, illuminated by the city lights. He saw her look at the money, then look toward the door, then back at the money. It was a long hesitation, almost 30 seconds. Then she grabbed the cash. Gio, who had followed him in, spoke. "I'll have her picked up. We'll get it back. She lives in Queens. It will be clean." Luca held up a hand. He did not take his eyes off the screen. He watched the woman, Alina, shove the money into her pants. He watched her face, a mask of pure, agonizing terror, right before she slammed the drawer shut. "Boss?" Gio pressed. "She stole from you." She hesitated, Luca said. He rewound the footage. He watched the hesitation again. Thieves did not hesitate. Junkies did not hesitate. Traitors did not hesitate. They looked, they saw, they took. "This woman?" She had decided. "No," Luca said, standing up. "Do not touch her." "But the money?" "Find out where it went," Luca said. I want to know what $20,000 buys a desperate woman at 11 o'clock at night. A background check, Gio said, understanding. A full one, Luca ordered. I want to know her blood type. I want to know the name of her daughter's stuffed bear. I want to know why. I sat in the darkness of Emily's hospital room. The only light came from the hallway and the soft green glow of the heart monitor. Beep, beep, beep. The soundtrack of my life. She was safe. She was scheduled. I had done it. I should have felt relief. I should have felt something. But all I felt was a cold, acidic guilt burning a hole in my stomach. I was a thief. I had stolen. The image of the cash in that drawer, dark and endless, was burned into my memory. I had stolen from Luca DeSantis, a man the kitchen staff called Il Capo, the boss, a man who lived in a glass fortress and had men with guns guarding his elevator. What had I done? My hands were shaking. I looked down at them, half expecting to see blood. I looked at Emily, her breathing already seeming a little less labored, or maybe I was just imagining it. Her favorite teddy bear, Barnaby, was tucked under her arm. I did what I had to do. The thought was a small, flickering candle in a hurricane of fear. I did what any mother would do to save her child. I clung to that thought. It was all I had. I had saved my daughter. But as I sat there, listening to the steady, rhythmic beep of the machine, I could not shake the feeling that I had just traded one monster for another, and this new one was waiting for me in a penthouse, high above the city. My next shift felt like walking to my own execution. Every step from the subway was heavy. The 48 hours had passed. Emily was in a different wing of the hospital, the one with the better equipment and the fewer questions. She was stable. That word, stable. It meant the monster was sleeping, not gone. But for now, she was safe. And I was walking back into the lion's den. I had spent 2 days in a cold sweat, my stomach a knot of acidic guilt. Every time a car door slammed, I jumped. Every time my phone rang, I expected it to be a deep voice telling me my time was up. But nothing happened. There was just the silence, the waiting, and the burning knowledge that I was a thief. The penthouse was just as I had left it, the cold, polished marble, the air that smelled like nothing at all. The 2 suited men by the elevator, their faces like blank masks. They did not look at me. They did not grab me. They did not put a bag over my head. I swiped my keycard. I was still active. I was not fired. My relief was so sharp it was almost painful, but it was shallow. It did not mean I was safe. It just meant, not yet. My hands were shaking as I stalked the cleaning cart, bleach, polish, glass cleaner. My weapons, my shield. I am a ghost. I am invisible. They did not see me. He did not know. But as I pushed the cart toward the main wing, I felt a change in the atmosphere. The penthouse was never warm, but tonight it felt like a freezer. The silence was heavier, more deliberate. I was wiping down the chrome legs of a dining table when I saw him. I had never seen him before, only in the whispers of the staff, in the fear in Mrs. Petrov's eyes. He was at the far end of the great room, by the floor-to-ceiling windows, talking to the man I knew as Gio. Gio was the one who looked like he could snap a man's neck with one hand, but next to the other man, Gio looked like a servant. Luca DeSantis was tall. The suit he wore was so dark it seemed to drink the light in the room. He was not looking at me, but I felt his presence like a drop in pressure. The air thickened. I scrubbed the table leg, my head down, my pulse hammering in my ears. Do not look, do not look. You are not here. But I could not help it. I stole a glance. He had his back to the city, but the lights of Manhattan framed him like a dark halo. He was younger than I expected. Not an old, weathered Don, but a man in his prime, dark hair, cut short. He moved his hand as he spoke to Gio, a gesture that was both elegant and dismissive. Then, as if he could feel me looking, his head turned. He did not look at me. He looked through me. His eyes swept the room, and for a single, heart-stopping second, they passed over me. They were dark. I was too far away to see the color, but I felt the coldness. My breath caught. I fumbled the cleaning rag, dropping it onto the marble floor. I snatched it up, my face burning. When I looked again, he was gone. Gio was gone. The room was empty. It was just me and the ghost of his presence. He was here, and he was not out of the country. Mrs. Petrov had lied. I tried to clean, but my hands were useless. I was clumsy. I knocked over a bottle of glass cleaner, the clatter echoing like a gunshot in the silent apartment. I spent 10 minutes wiping up the spill, my heart trying to escape my chest. He was watching me. I could not see him, but I knew it. He was in the security room. He was on the cameras. He was watching me clean his house after I had stolen from him. Was this a test? Was he waiting for me to make another mistake? I finished my shift in a blur of terror. I did not go near the study. I cleaned the kitchen, the guest wing, the common areas, my movements jerky and inefficient. Finally, midnight. I clocked out. The suited men were still there, still blank. I ran to the service elevator, the one that smelled like cleaning chemicals and old machinery. I pressed the button for the lobby, my body sagging against the wall. I was free. I had survived. The elevator shuddered to a stop. The doors began to close. A hand shot out and stopped them. It was a man's hand, large, tanned, with a heavy, simple gold ring on the fourth finger. My head snapped up. The doors slid open again. Luca DeSantis stepped inside. The elevator was not meant for two people. It was a metal box, and he filled it. He was not just tall, he was broad. He took up all the air. He smelled like expensive wool, leather, and something sharp and clean, like winter air. I pressed myself into the corner. My body rigid, I stared at the button panel. Lobby, 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 please move. He did not press a button. He just stood there. The silence was a living thing. I could hear the hum of the building. I could hear my own ragged breathing. I could feel his eyes on the side of my face. Do not look. Do not look. The elevator gave a sudden, sick lurch, the kind it always did between the 10th and 9th floors. I was not ready for it. I was holding my cheap, reusable water bottle and a small paper cup of coffee I had grabbed from the staff lounge for the subway ride. The jolt sent me stumbling forward. The coffee, scalding hot, flew from my hand. It splashed across his chest, across the crisp white shirt under his unbuttoned suit jacket, across the perfectly tailored black wool. I froze. The coffee cup, empty, rolled to a stop by his expensive Italian shoe. I did not breathe. I did not move. This was it. This was how I died, scrubbing coffee off a Mafia boss in a service elevator. "Oh my God," I whispered. The words came out in a rush, desperate and high-pitched. "I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I did not. The elevator. I fumbled in my pocket for a napkin, a rag, anything. I found a wad of tissues and, in my panic, I did the stupidest thing possible. I reached out to wipe his chest. His hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. The touch was not violent. It was not a shove. It was a capture. His grip was absolute, his fingers wrapping around my wrist with an electrical heat that stopped me cold. My hand, holding the crumpled tissues, hovered inches from his shirt. "It's fine," he said. His voice. It was not the shout I expected. It was low, a deep gravel that seemed to vibrate in the small space. It was calm, colder than a shout. My eyes flew up to his. I had been wrong. They were not just dark. They were the color of the expensive dark roast coffee I had just spilled, a brown so deep it was almost black. And they were evaluating. He was not angry. He was curious. He was looking at me like I was a puzzle he had not yet solved. "You're Alina Marlowe," he said. It was not a question. It was a statement. My blood turned to ice. He knew my name. The owner, the boss. He knew my name. The man who lived behind glass. The man who was never seen. He knew my name. "Yes," I managed to whisper. My wrist was still in his grip. I could feel his pulse. Or maybe it was mine, a frantic bird against his thumb. Be more careful, he said. He was not talking about the coffee. He let go of my wrist. My hand fell to my side, stinging. The elevator dinged. The doors slid open to the lobby. Mr. DeSantis, I stammered, my voice shaking. The suit, the shirt, I can pay for the cleaning. I get paid on Friday. He turned, and for a moment, I saw his full face under the harsh fluorescent lights of the lobby. He was handsome, but it was a cruel handsome, sharp jaw, a straight nose, a mouth that looked like it had never smiled. Do not worry about the suit, Alina, he said, and the way he said my name, it felt like a brand. I have others. He walked out, leaving me alone in the elevator, my knees shaking, the smell of coffee and his cold, expensive cologne filling my lungs. The subway ride home was a new kind of torture. He knows my name. He knows my name. He knows my name. The paranoia was worse this time. I kept seeing him. The man in the dark coat. Was he the same one? He got off at my stop. I did not run. I walked, fast, my keys in my hand, one key pushed out between my fingers, the way my dad taught me. I got to my apartment, slammed the door, and threw the deadbolt. My hands were shaking so hard it took 3 tries. I called the hospital. How is she? Emily Marlowe. How is she? She's sleeping, Mrs. Marlowe, the night nurse said, her voice kind. The first round of treatment went very well. Her numbers are already starting to stabilize. Doctor. Eris is very pleased. I sank against the wall, the phone pressed to my ear. Stabilize. Pleased. Good words. The only good words in my world. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you. I hung up and sat in the dark of my tiny living room. The guilt was gone, replaced by a pure, undiluted terror. He knew me. He had spoken to me. He had touched me. This was not over. This was just beginning. I must have fallen asleep on the couch because I woke up, my neck stiff, to the sound of my phone buzzing on the floor. I looked at the clock, 1:30 in the morning. My heart seized. It was the hospital. Something was wrong. I grabbed the phone. Hello? It was a private number. Hello? I said again, louder. Is this the hospital? Silence. Not a deadline. I could hear the faint, open-air hiss. I could hear breathing. A slow, steady, quiet breath on the other end of the line. Who is this? I whispered, my blood running cold. What do you want? The breathing continued for 3 long, agonizing seconds. Click. They hung up. I stared at the phone. It was not the hospital. It was him. It had to be him. Or his men. They were toying with me. They were in my head. They were letting me know they could reach me. Anytime. Anywhere. I did not sleep again. The next day, I almost did not go. I could quit. I could take Emily and run. Run where? On what money? The money I stole? No. I had to go. I had to face it. I still owed the hospital the remaining $5,000. I needed this job. I walked into the penthouse that night, and it was different again. Mrs. Petrov was waiting for me, right by the service entrance. Her granite face was not worried, but tighter. You are not cleaning tonight, Alina, she said, her voice clipped. This was it, the end. Am I fired? Mr. DeSantis wants to speak with you, she said. She did not meet my eyes. Privately. My stomach dropped through the floor. Where? He is in the study. The study. The scene of the crime, of course. I wanted to throw up. I wanted to run. But I thought of Emily. I thought of the silent phone call. There was no running from this man. I walked. My footsteps echoed on the marble. The suited men were there. Gio was there, standing by the study door. His arms were crossed, and the look he gave me was pure, cold hatred. He looked at me like I was a cockroach he was about to step on. He opened the study door and jerked his chin. Get in. I stepped inside. The room was dark, just as I remembered, but this time, he was there. He was standing by the massive window, a silhouette against the glittering diamond spray of the city. He was holding a glass of some dark liquid. Shut the door, he said. His voice was not loud, but it filled the room. I reached back and pushed the door shut. The click was the loudest sound I had ever heard. It was the sound of a trap snapping shut. "You spilled coffee on me," he said. His back was still to me. "Mr. DeSantis," I started, my voice a pathetic, shaking thing. I am so sorry. I am clumsy. It was a mistake. I can... "You are a lot of things, Alina," he said, and he turned. Clumsy is not the first word that comes to mind. He moved from the window, and he was not fast. He was deliberate. He set his glass on the desk and walked toward me, stopping a few feet away, in the low light. His eyes were just shadows. You know my name," I stammered. "I know more than your name." His voice was soft. "I know you live at 418 Crescent Street in Astoria, apartment 3B. I know you have $512 in your checking account and over $30,000 in medical debt. I know you have a daughter, Emily, 6 years old. She's at Mount Sinai, rare blood disorder, needs a new treatment protocol, a protocol that costs $25,000. The air left my lungs in a single, silent whoosh. He knew everything. The room was tilting. "You're a thief," he said. It was not an accusation. It was a statement of fact. And I broke. The terror, the guilt, the shame, the 2 days of agonizing suspense. It all burst. I was not a tough girl. I was not a criminal. I was a terrified mother. Yes, I sobbed. The tears were hot, blinding. I did it. I took it. I took the money, but I had to. You do not understand. My daughter, she was so sick. They said she was going to get worse. I did not know what to do. I will pay you back. I swear it. I will work for free. I will clean. I will do anything. Please do not call the police. Please do not hurt her. Please. I was babbling, a mess of tears and snot, my whole body shaking. I was expecting him to hit me, to yell, to call Gio in to drag me out. He did nothing. He just stood there, watching me fall apart. His face was a mask of nothing. It was not anger. It was not pity. It was a terrible, unreadable calm. He let the silence stretch, listening to my pathetic sobs echo in his $1 million office. He waited until my breathing hitched, until I was just a shaking, silent wreck in front of him. Then he spoke. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the room, through my fear. "You should have just asked." I looked up, wiping my wet face with the back of my hand. "What?" "The money," he said, his voice even. "For your daughter. You should have just asked." I stared at him. This was not possible. This was not what men like him, what monsters, said. He was supposed to be angry. He was supposed to be violent. I do not know you, I whispered. It was the only truth I had left. "You work in my home," he said, taking a step closer. "You clean my floors. You stole from me, and you are right. You do not know me." Our eyes met, and in the darkness of the room, I was not seeing a monster. I was seeing a man, a very dangerous, very powerful, very lonely man. There was no pity in his eyes, but there was not. There was not rage. There was just understanding, a cold, hard understanding. What happens now?" I whispered, my voice small. "Now," he said, and he stepped back, the spell breaking. "You are not fired." Relief hit me so hard my knees buckled. I grabbed the edge of the desk to steady myself. "But," he said, and the steel was back, sharp and cold. "Your employment, Mo, has changed. You are no longer Mrs. Petrov's ghost." What do I do?" "You answer to me, only to me. Your debt is not paid. Alina, it is transferred to me." He walked to the door and opened it. Gio was still there, his face like thunder. Mrs. Petrov was a few feet behind him, wringing her hands. Mrs. Petrov, Luka said, his voice loud enough for them to hear. Alina will no longer be on the common rotation. From now on, she will be handling my private quarters. Gio's head snapped up. I could see the betrayal, the fury in his eyes. He looked at me, then at Luka. Mrs. Petrov just nodded, her face pale. Yes, Mr. DeSantis. Luka looked back at me, his gaze pinning me in the doorway. We are clear. I nodded, mute, my heart a captured bird, beating its wings against the cage of my ribs. Good, go, and Alina. I stopped. The money I put back in the drawer, he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Leave it there. It is for the Serbians. They are not as understanding as I am. He had replaced it. He had known. He had replaced the money. He had watched me. He had waited. The full implication of his control, his power, his strange, terrifying mercy slammed into me. This was not a man you stole from. This was a man who let you steal, just to see what you would do. I hurried past Gio, my skin crawling, and followed Mrs. Petrov down the hall, away from the study, and into a world I was pretty sure I was never getting out of. My new job was a cage, a gilded, opulent cage, but a cage nonetheless. After my confession, Mrs. Petrov's thin, disapproving face was the last thing I saw before the heavy oak door to Luka DeSantis' private wing closed, leaving me on his side of the penthouse. The rules were simple. I was to be here at 7 a.m. I was to clean his bedroom, his private study, the real one, not the decoy office downstairs, and his master bath. I was not to speak unless spoken to, and I was to be gone before he returned in the evening. The first few days, I was alone. I learned him through the things he left behind. His suits were custom, dark, and felt like they were woven from silk and steel. His bathroom was minimalist, black marble and chrome, with a single, expensive bottle of cologne that smelled like sandalwood and something smoky, like a bonfire on a cold night. He had books, not just the decorative, unread volumes that filled the shelves in the living room downstairs, but real, worn-out books, Marcus Aurelius, Machiavelli, old Italian poetry. And on his nightstand, next to a heavy crystal glass, was a single framed photograph. It was old. The colors faded. A young girl, maybe 14 or 15, with his same dark eyes and an impossibly bright smile. She was laughing, her hair caught in the wind. It was the only personal item in the entire apartment. I cleaned with a meticulousness born of terror. I was terrified of him, yes, but I was also terrified of Gio. I knew Luka had handled him, but I saw the way the other guards looked at me now. I was no longer a ghost. I was something else, an object of curiosity, an object of disdain. I was the maid who had stolen and, somehow, was still here. Sometimes, Luka would be home when I arrived. He would be in the dining area adjacent to his quarters, drinking coffee, reading a paper, looking for all the world like a normal businessman. He never looked up when I entered. He just existed, a still, silent predator in the center of his territory. I could feel his awareness of me in the room, a prickling sensation on the back of my neck. Then, one morning, he spoke. "You're using the wrong polish on that wood." I froze, a soft cloth in my hand, my body halfway bent over a cherry wood table. I straightened up, my heart hammering. "Mr. DeSantis, this is what Mrs. Petrov gave me." He was staring out the window, his back to me. "She doesn't know this wood. It's 17th century Tuscan. It needs oil, not wax. The wax builds up. It dulls the grain." He didn't turn around. He just said, "Look in the bottom left cabinet of the bar." I found a small, unmarked bottle of dark oil. I returned to the table, my hands shaking. I worked in silence for a minute, the scent of almonds and cedar filling the air. "Your daughter," he said suddenly. "How is she?" My breath hitched. "She's better. The treatment seems to be working." "Good," he said, and that was all. The small talks began like that, a question from him across the room, a quiet observation. He asked me what I was reading to Emily. I told him Charlotte's Web. He nodded. A strange look on his face. He asked me what I ate. He started leaving trays of food from the chef on the kitchen counter for me, knowing I rarely had time for lunch. I never touched them while he was there. Then, the miracle happened. I was at the hospital, holding Emily's small hand while she slept. Doctor. Eris walked in, a chart in his hand and a look on his face I'd never seen before. It was genuine astonishment. "Alina," he said, his voice low. "I don't know how to explain this. Her latest labs, her enzyme counts are stabilizing at a rate we've never seen. The protocol is working, but this is faster than we could have hoped for." Tears welled in my eyes. "So she's getting better?" "She's getting much better, but that's not the only reason I'm here." He shuffled his feet, looking almost embarrassed. "We received a significant donation this morning, earmarked specifically for Emily's continued care, anonymously." "A donation? From who?" "I have no idea," he said. "It came through a wire transfer from a legal firm. It was enough to cover the entire course of her treatment. For the next 2 years, Alina, you don't have to worry about the money anymore." I collapsed into the vinyl chair, my legs giving out. I couldn't process it. "All of it? Paid for?" "Doctor," Eris smiled. "The donation was registered under a foundation, the Gabriella Foundation. I've never heard of it, but whoever they are, they're angels." My heart stopped. Gabriella, the name on the back of my eyelids, the girl in the photograph. I went to work the next day in a daze. He was there, in his office, on the phone. He spoke in rapid, harsh Italian, his voice a low growl. I waited until he was finished. He hung up and looked at me, his face dark. "Mr. DeSantis," I said, my voice trembling. "I told you. Call me Luca." "Luca," I said, the name feeling foreign, dangerous. Emily's treatment, it's been paid for." He just watched me. His expression was flat. "The Gabriella Foundation," I whispered. He looked away, toward the window. The silence stretched out, thick and heavy, until I thought I would stifle from it. "She liked children," he said finally, his voice so quiet I barely heard it. "She always wanted to be a nurse. It's fitting." I didn't know what to do. I wanted to thank him, but I knew, instinctively, that he would hate it, that the gift was only a gift if it remained unspoken. So I just nodded. "Thank you," I said. "Not for the money, but for the answer." He nodded once. "Clean the glass. You missed a spot yesterday." The dynamic shifted. The fear was still there, but it was different. It was laced with a powerful, confusing gratitude. But as my fear of Luca lessened, my awareness of Gio's hatred grew. Luca had been right. Gio was gone from the penthouse, but his shadow remained. I felt eyes on me when I walked home. I would see the same gray sedan parked 2 blocks from my apartment. I told myself I was paranoid, that I was just shaken from the night in the alley. Until I wasn't. I was walking home, pushing through the late evening crowds at the subway station, when a hand grabbed my arm. Hard. "He thinks you're special, huh?" I spun around. It was Gio. His face was a mask of rage, his eyes bloodshot. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. He kicked me out, he hissed, his grip tightening, pulling me closer so no one else could hear. 30 years I served his family. 30 years, and you, a little thief. You come in, and in 2 weeks. Your family? "Let go of me," I said, trying to pull my arm away. People were brushing past us, lost in their own worlds. "He's weak," Gio spat, his face inches from mine. "He's soft, and you're the infection." "Leave me alone," I twisted, but he was too strong. He started to pull me, dragging me toward a side exit, away from the sparse crowd. "No." The voice was ice. "Luca, He was standing at the top of the stairs, flanked by his two permanent shadows. He had come for me, or he had been waiting. Gio froze, let go of my arm, shoving me away. "Boss," Gio said, his voice suddenly hollow, "I was just talking to her." "You were warned," Luca said. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The sound of it carried an absolute, final authority. He walked down the steps, his expensive shoes making no sound. He stopped in front of Gio. He was half a head shorter than his former lieutenant, but he seemed to tower over him. "You put your hands on her," Luca stated. "Boss, she's a weakness. I was trying to protect you." Luca's hand moved so fast I almost missed it. He didn't punch. He didn't hit. He reached out and grabbed Gio's chin, his fingers digging into the man's jaw. Gio gasped, his eyes wide with sudden, primal fear. "She is not your concern," Luca said, his voice a lethal whisper. "And I am not weak, but you are about to be. Get out of my sight if I ever see you again. If I hear your name, if I even think you are breathing the same air as her, I will find your family. Gio, I will find every person you have ever spoken to, and I will erase them. Do you understand me?" He let go. Gio, a man I had seen command others with a glance, stumbled back, his face white. He said nothing. He just turned and vanished into the crowd. I was shaking, my arm throbbing where he'd grabbed me. Luca turned to me. The fury was gone, replaced by that same unreadable calm. "Come," he said. He took my elbow, his touch surprisingly gentle, and led me out of the station. His car was waiting. He drove me to the penthouse himself. This time, he didn't take me to the gym. He took me back to the rooftop garden. The night was cold, but the air was clear. The city lights seemed brighter. He poured 2 glasses of wine, his hands perfectly steady. "He will not bother you again," he said, handing me a glass. I took it, my fingers brushing his. "You were going to kill him." He looked at me. He threatened what is mine. My breath caught. "I'm not yours, Luca." He smiled, but it wasn't a real smile. It was a baring of teeth. "You're in my house, Alina. You are under my protection. You eat my food. My money pays for your daughter's life. In my world, that makes you mine." I should have been terrified. A part of me was, but another part felt a strange, dark thrill. I had never been anything to anyone. Now I was his. "Why?" I asked. "Why are you doing this? The money, the guard at the hospital? Tonight." He was silent for a long time, staring out at the city. "My sister, Gabriella," he said, his voice low, "the night she died. I was supposed to be with her. We were going to the movies, but I had other business, a debt to collect for my father. I chose this." He gestured to the city. "I chose the family. By the time I got to her, it was too late." He turned to face me. The moonlight carved his face into sharp planes of light and shadow. "I see her in you, not in your face, but in your desperation, your fight. You did what you did for your daughter. You are a good mother. I protect you. I protect her. It feels like I am protecting her." He was so close now. I could feel the heat radiating from his body. This was not the man who had terrified me in the elevator. This was not the man who had calmly dismantled Gio with a few words. This was someone else, someone raw and broken and achingly lonely. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "Don't be," he said, his voice rough. "Just don't be afraid of me." He reached up, his fingers tracing the line of my jaw. It was the same touch from that first night. But now, it was confident. It was possessive. "I'm afraid of you," I admitted. "I know," he said, and then his mouth was on mine. It was not hesitant, not this time. It was demanding, consuming. It was all the darkness and the violence and the loneliness he kept locked inside, and it was pouring into me. His hand left my face entangled in my hair, pulling my head back. His other arm snaked around my waist, lifting me against him, crushing me to his chest. I didn't fight. I didn't want it. I opened my mouth for him, my hands gripping his jacket, pulling him closer. It was madness. He was my boss. He was a killer. He was my savior. He kissed me like he was starving. He kissed me like he was drowning, and I kissed him back. When he finally pulled away, we were both breathless. His dark eyes were burning. He didn't say a word. He just lifted me into his arms, as if I weighed nothing, and carried me back inside, down the stairs to his rooms. He laid me on his bed. The sheets were cool against my back. He stood over me for a long moment, just looking. Then, slowly, as if he was unwrapping a priceless, fragile gift, he began to undo the buttons of my uniform. His fingers were large, but they were not clumsy. They were reverent. He worshipped my body with his hands. His mouth, he touched me with a tenderness that was almost painful. It was a slow, deliberate act of possession. This was not a quick, angry release. This was an exploration. He learned every scar, every freckle, every place I was sensitive. And I let him. I let this dangerous, broken man show me a kind of care, a kind of devotion that I had never known. It was raw, and it was desperate, and it was, in its own terrifying way, beautiful. When I woke, sunlight was streaming in. I was alone in the massive bed. For a second, I thought it was a dream. Then I saw my uniform, folded neatly on a chair. Beside it, a new set of clothes, simple, elegant, and impossibly expensive. I dressed quickly and left. I felt branded, changed. I went to the hospital. Emily was sitting up, drawing. "Mommy," she squealed, and my heart cracked open. This was what mattered. This was why I did it. I hugged her, breathing in the clean, innocent smell of her hair. "Mommy, I want to meet the angel man," she said, pulling away, her eyes bright. "What angel man, baby?" She pointed to her drawing. It was a child's scrawl, a little girl in a bed, a woman with wild brown hair, me, and a tall, dark man standing beside her. He had no face, just dark hair and a long black coat. "The man who helped us," she said, as if it were obvious. "The nurse said a foundation paid for everything, like I want to say thank you." I looked at the drawing, my two worlds colliding, the monster from the shadows and the daughter I did it all to protect. I forced a smile. "Maybe one day, sweetie." I folded the drawing and put it in my pocket. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that I could not keep them separate for long. My new life was a gilded cage, and the bars were forged from Luca DeSantis's protection. I was no longer just the night shift maid. I was, in some unspoken, undefined way, I still cleaned his private quarters, but the dynamic had shifted. The terror I once felt had been replaced by a tense, hyper-aware caution. He was in the penthouse more often, sometimes working at his desk while I dusted. The only sounds the whisper of my cloth and the quiet scratch of his pen. He was, I learned, surprisingly gentle. Not soft, never soft. He was a creature of coiled power. But the violence I'd glimpsed was now carefully banked, at least toward me. The first change was the guard, a man named Marco, who had the build of a refrigerator and a face that never smiled, now drove me to and from the hospital. He waited outside Emily's room while I sat with her, his presence a silent, looming statement. I was being watched, but I was also being shielded. "Your world is not safe, Alina." Luca had told me one evening, standing by the vast windows of his study. "The Orsini family, they know you are here. They know you are important to me." "Important?" I'd echoed, the word feeling strange on my tongue. "They see you as a vulnerability, a weakness." He turned to me, his dark eyes intense. "I will not let you be one. You will have security, always." It was not a request. It was the new reality. A few nights later, he informed me I would be his guest at a dinner, not his date, his guest. I don't have anything to wear to one of your dinners, Luca. That has been taken care of, he said, gesturing to a garment bag hanging on his closet door. It was a dress the color of a deep red wine, silk that felt like water against my skin. It was simple, elegant, and worth more than my entire apartment. When I came out, he was waiting by the door, dressed in a suit so dark it looked like a shadow. He didn't say I looked beautiful. He just watched me for a long moment, his gaze so heavy I felt it on my skin, and then said, "Good, let's go." The restaurant was all dark wood, white linen and hushed, important voices. We were led to a private room where 4 other men sat, their wives beside them, diamonds glinting on their fingers. The moment we walked in, the conversation died. I felt their eyes on me, sharp and assessing. They were sizing me up. The maid who had somehow found her way to the boss's table. I felt small, out of place, a fraud in a borrowed dress. I wanted to run back to the kitchens, to the familiar anonymity of my cleaning cart. Luca put his hand on the small of my back, a firm, warm pressure. He guided me to the seat beside him and never let go of my hand. He held it on the table, a clear, unmistakable gesture. "This is Alina," he said to the table, his voice casual, but it carried an authority that silenced any potential questions. The dinner was a blur. The women were polite, but their eyes were cold. The men were deferential to Luca, but I could feel their curiosity. They were testing him, trying to see the crack, and I was the crack. But Luca was immovable. He kept me anchored to his side. He drew me into the conversation when he could, asking my opinion on the wine, the food, things he knew I understood. He was protective in a way that was almost suffocating, and yet I had never felt safer. He was proud, and it made no sense. When we returned to the penthouse, the tension had not left me, but it was a different kind of tension. Luca was unlocking the private elevator when a voice cut through the lobby. "Boss?" We both turned. It was Gio, and he looked terrible. His suit was rumpled, his eyes were bloodshot, and he smelled of stale whiskey. "Gio," Luca said, his voice dropping 10 degrees, "you are not welcome here." I know, Gio said, holding his hands up, taking a step forward. Luca's new guard, Marco, stepped in front of me, shielding me from view. I gotta talk to you, boss, alone." "Whatever you have to say, you can say it in front of her." Gio's eyes flickered to me, and the hatred in them made me flinch. "That's the problem. You're not thinking clearly. She's making you soft." Luca didn't move. He just watched Gio. "A maid?" Gio spat. "You're bringing a maid to the table to sit with the Scarpas, the Orsinis? They see this. They smell it. They smell blood in the water, Luca, and it's her. She's the one poisoning you." "You're done, Gio," Luca said, his voice dangerously quiet. "No, I'm not." Gio took another step, his voice rising in desperation. "I've been with your family for 30 years. I knew your father, and I'm telling you, this woman, she's going to be the end of you. The end of all of us." "This is the last time I will tell you," Luca said, his hand moving slightly, a signal to the men by the door. "Get out if I ever see your face again. I will kill you myself." There was no negotiation in his voice. It was a simple, cold promise. Gio's face crumpled. The fury was replaced by a hollow-eyed defeat. He stared at me one last time, a look of pure loathing, before turning and walking away, disappearing into the New York night. The elevator ride up was silent. I was shaking. Luca stood beside me, staring straight ahead, his jaw tight. When the doors opened to his private floor, I felt like I was going to be sick. The glamour of the dinner, the fragile sense of belonging, it was all gone, replaced by the raw, ugly reality of his world. Before I could go to my own small room, my phone buzzed, a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but a jolt of panic, the kind only a mother knows, made me answer. "Alina? Alina Marlowe?" The voice was male, slurred and terrifyingly familiar. I froze. "Who is this?" "You don't remember me? Wow, that hurts." Sweetheart, it's Rick. My ex, Emily's father. A man I had not seen or heard from in 4 years. A man who had left me when I was 6 months pregnant, drowning in debt. "Well, what do you want?" I demanded, my voice low and shaking with a different kind of fear. "I hear you're living large now, huh? Penthouse on the Upper East Side, rubbing elbows with the big shot, and here I am, scraping by." "What do you want, Rick?" "I want what's mine. I hear my daughter is sick. I'm her father. I have rights. I've been thinking, maybe I should have custody. A kid needs her father." The blood drained from my face. I looked over at Luca, who was watching me, his head tilted, his expression hardening as he read the terror on my face. "You don't want Emily," I spat. "You want money." "Maybe," he slurred, "but I could get a lot more in court. Public interest story, right? Single father, fighting for his sick kid, trying to save her from her mother, who's shacked up with some gangster. I bet the judge would love that. I was going to be sick. You wouldn't. Try me. Or you could make this easy. 50,000 cash, and I disappear." I hung up, my hand shaking so hard I dropped the phone. Luca was in front of me in an instant. "Who was that?" "My ex," I whispered, the tears I had been holding back finally breaking free. "Emily's father, he knows about you. He wants money, or he said he'd take her. He's going to try and get custody." I watched Luca's face transform. The detached calm was gone, replaced by a cold, primordial fury. It was the same look he'd given Gio, but 1,000 times more dangerous. "Give me his name," he said, his voice a low growl. Rick Peterson, but Luca..." "He's a ghost," Luca said, pulling out his own phone. "He's gone. I'll make him disappear. He will be a bad memory. He will never, ever be able to find you or Emily again." "No!" I shouted, grabbing his arm. The phone clattered from his hand. "No, Luca, you can't. You can't just disappear him. God, he's still her father. I won't have that. I can't be that person. I can't have you do that." He looked at me, his eyes baffled, like he couldn't comprehend my refusal. "Alina, he is a threat. This is how you remove a threat." "Not like that," I pleaded, my voice breaking. "There has to be another way, a legal way. I can't have blood on my hands, not for Emily." He stared at me for a long moment, his jaw working. I saw the internal battle, the instinct of the beast warring with the man he was becoming for me. "Finally," he nodded. "Once?" He picked up his phone, his expression still hard. "There are other ways," he conceded. He punched in a number. "Get me David, now." "Yes, I know what time it is." He looked at me. "My lawyers will handle this. We will bury him in so much paper he won't be able to breathe. He won't get within a mile of her, legally or otherwise. I promise you." He took me to the living room and poured me a brandy. I was trembling so hard I could barely hold the glass. The combined weight of Gio's threat, Rick's blackmail, and Luca's casual offer of murder was crushing me. "I'm so scared," I whispered, finally letting the words out. I looked at him, really looked at him, not as a boss or a killer, but as the only person in the world who seemed to understand. All I ever wanted was to keep her safe, and I think I've just put her in more danger than ever. I told him everything then, not just about Rick, but about my childhood, the foster homes, the feeling of being completely, utterly alone, the constant fear of being unwanted, of being discarded. I told him how, when Emily was born, she was the first thing in my entire life that was truly mine, the first person I loved without reservation. He didn't speak. He just sat across from me, his dark eyes never leaving my face. He listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't judge. He didn't offer empty platitudes. He just listened. When I finished, my voice raw and my face streaked with tears, he came to me. He knelt in front of my chair and took the brandy glass from my shaking hands. His touch was impossibly gentle. He cupped my face, his thumbs wiping away the tears. "You are not that girl anymore, Alina," he said, his voice low and heavy. "You are not alone, and you are safe. I will keep you safe." He leaned in and kissed me. It was not like the first time in the hallway, which had been all sudden, desperate fire. It was not the passionate, claiming kiss on the rooftop. This was something else entirely. It was slow, it was reverent, it was a promise. He kissed my eyelids, my temples, the tear tracks on my cheeks. He kissed my mouth with a softness that undid me. It was a kiss that wasn't demanding anything but was giving everything. It was giving me shelter. All the defenses I had built my entire life, the walls I put up to keep out the pain, the fear, the loneliness, they just crumbled. He lifted me, one arm under my knees, the other around my back, and carried me to his bed. He laid me down and simply held me, his arms wrapped around me, my head on his chest. I could feel the steady, strong beat of his heart under my ear. "He will not touch you," Luca murmured into my hair, his voice vibrating through me. "No one will." I held on to him, breathing in his scent, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly, completely safe. I fell asleep in his arms. I woke to the sound of my own screaming. I was in his bed, alone. The sun was streaming in, bright and cheerful. It was morning, but I was screaming. It was my phone. It was ringing on the nightstand, a frantic, vibrating buzz. I lunged for it, my heart already a block of ice. "Hello? Miss Marlowe? This is Nurse Jenkins at Mount Sinai." Her voice was high, frantic. "You need to come, now. There's been an incident. It's Emily, Miss Marlowe, she's gone." "Gone?" I repeated, the word hollow, meaningless. "What do you mean, gone? Is she in radiology? Did they move her?" "No, Miss Marlowe. She's gone. Her guard. He's hurt. Someone took her. Alina. Someone took your daughter." I don't remember dropping the phone. I don't remember the sound that ripped itself from my throat. I just remember the world going black at the edges. I stumbled out of the bedroom, clutching the bedsheet to my chest. "Luca!" He burst out of his study, his shirt unbuttoned, his hair a mess. He must have heard me scream. "Alina, what is it? What's wrong?" They took her," I choked out, collapsing against the doorframe. "Emily, she's gone. The hospital. They took her." I stared at him, my vision blurring. "This is my fault. Oh God, this is my fault. It's because of you. It's the Orsinis. I brought this. I did this." I was hysterical, barely coherent, pounding my fists against his chest. You have to get her back. Please, Luca, please." His face, which had been a mask of confusion, instantly hardened into something I had never seen before. It was not anger. It was a terrifying, absolute stillness, a void. He grabbed my shoulders, his grip like steel, forcing me to look at him. His dark eyes were on fire. "Listen to me," he commanded, his voice so sharp it cut through my panic. "I will find her. I will bring her back." He let go of me and turned, his voice ringing out through the penthouse, echoing off the marble. "Marco, Antonio, get in here." His men were there in seconds, their faces grim. "No one touches what's mine," Luca said, his voice a low, lethal promise aimed at me, at them, at the world. He turned to his men. It was the Orsinis. They took the girl. He didn't wait for confirmation. He didn't ask questions. He knew. "Find out where they are," and he ordered. "Find every one of them. Find Gio. I want every man we have. Call in every favor. No one leaves this city. No one, Inge." He looked back at me, his eyes black. "This is war." The penthouse became a war room. Luca stood in the center, not a single visible trace of panic on his face, only a cold, terrifying focus. He was on the phone, his voice low and guttural, speaking in Italian so fast I could only pick out 2 words, Orsini and Figlia, my daughter. Men I had never seen before began to arrive, appearing from elevators and stairwells I didn't know existed. They were quiet, professional, and armed. The air grew thick with the smell of gun oil and cold purpose. "I found them," Luca said, snapping his phone shut. He looked at me, his eyes hard. "An old warehouse in Red Hook. They're not even trying to hide. They want me to come." "I'm going," I said, my voice flat. He didn't even pause. "No, you're not. Marco stays here with you. You will be safe." "She is my daughter. Luca, I am not staying here while you—" I couldn't finish. He crossed the room in 2 strides and gripped my upper arms. His fingers dug in, just shy of painful. "Listen to me, Alina, this is not a debate. You are not trained for this. You will be a liability. You will get yourself killed, or you will get her killed. I am going. I will bring her back. That is my promise." He turned and walked out, his men falling in behind him like shadows. The main door clicked shut, the sound echoing in the massive, empty apartment. I stood there for a long, vibrating second. The silence was suffocating. Marco stood by the elevator, his face a mask. "I can't," I whispered. "I couldn't just sit here. I couldn't wait." The thought of Emily, alone and scared, was a physical knife in my chest. I ran. I ran for the service stairs, the ones I'd used 1,000 times as a maid. Marco, surprised by my sudden bolt, yelled my name, but he was on the other side of the room. I was faster. I hit the button for the garage, my heart hammering. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew I had to be there. I got to the street just as a black SUV, the last in Luca's convoy, was screeching out of the garage. I didn't think. I flagged down a taxi. "Follow that car," I said, my voice high and tight. The driver, a man with a weary face, looked at the convoy of black tinted window SUVs. He looked back at me, a woman in a wrinkled t-shirt and terror in her eyes. He sighed. "Lady, I don't want no trouble. There's $20,000 on a credit card in my pocket if you don't lose them." I lied. My husband is in that car. I think he's in trouble." The lie was ugly, but it worked. The cab driver slammed on the gas. The ride was a blur of red lights and near misses. We kept a safe distance, but we never lost them. We raced out of Manhattan, through the tunnel, and into the desolate, industrial streets of Red Hook. When they pulled into a dark, abandoned-looking warehouse complex, the driver stopped. "This is as far as I go, lady. That's not a place for us." I threw a handful of $100 bills on the seat, the emergency money Luca had insisted I carry, and got out. "Wait for me," I said, but I knew he would not. I crouched behind a pile of rusted shipping containers, my heart beating so hard I could feel it in my throat. I watched as Luca's men fanned out, silent and professional. They moved like ghosts, taking positions. There was no shouting, no sirens, just the quiet, methodical positioning of a strike team. Then, everything happened at once. I heard a sound like a muffled cough. Thwip, thwip! A man on the roof of the warehouse crumpled over the edge. The assault began. It was not like the movies. There was no heroic music. It was fast, brutal, and terrifyingly quiet. I saw Luca move with them, not in the back, but at the front. He moved with a speed and economy of motion that was inhuman. He did not waste a single step. I saw a flash from a window. Muzzle fire. One of Luca's men went down, clutching his leg. Luca didn't even pause. He and 2 other men breached a side door, disappearing into the darkness. I couldn't stay hidden. I ran, keeping to the shadows, following the sound of muffled gunfire. I slipped through the same door they had used. The inside of the warehouse smelled of rust, stagnant water, and cordite. It was vast and dark, with huge metal shelves rising into the blackness. I heard a shout, a scuffle, then a sickening, final sound. I crept forward, my hands over my mouth to keep from screaming. I saw Luca at the far end of the warehouse, in front of a heavy steel door. A large man, one of the Orsini men I'd seen at the restaurant, was standing in front of it, holding a small, trembling figure in front of him like a shield. It was Emily. My breath tore from my lungs. "No!" Luca's head snapped toward me. His eyes were black pits of rage. "Alina, get back!" "Let her go," I screamed, ignoring him, taking a step forward. "Stay back," the man yelled, pressing the barrel of his gun to Emily's temple. "Or I swear to God, DeSantis, I'll do it." Emily was crying, her small face pale and tear-streaked. "Mommy, Mommy, I'm scared." "It's okay, baby, Mommy's here." "You're not in a position to negotiate," Luca said. His voice was terrifyingly calm. He was not looking at the man. He was looking at Emily. "Let her go." "You think I'm stupid? You'll kill me either way. I'm taking the girl," the man snarled, starting to drag Emily backward. "No," Luca said. It happened so fast I almost missed it. Luca had not been looking at the man, but he was aiming. The muffled thwip-thwip of his pistol echoed twice in the huge space. The man's head snapped back. He didn't even make a sound. He just collapsed, his grip on Emily loosening. I was already moving. I ran, scrambling over crates, and caught Emily just before she hit the concrete floor. I pulled her into my arms, burying my face in her hair, sobbing. "It's okay, baby. It's okay. Mommy's got you. You're safe." I held her, rocking back and forth, my body finally giving in to the violent shaking. I looked up. Luca was standing over us. He had holstered his gun. He was just watching. The look on his face was not triumph. It was not relief. It was a profound, aching sadness. He was watching me hold my daughter, and in his eyes, I saw the ghost of the sister he could not save. I saw a man who had everything and nothing, a man who understood, in that moment, exactly what he had just given back to me. The wail of sirens cut through the night. "We have to go," he said, his voice thick. "The police," I whispered. "They're here to clean up." He scooped Emily up from my arms. She was so light, so small against his broad chest. She didn't cry. She just buried her face in his neck, her little hands clinging to his shirt. He let us out. 2 police cars were now at the front entrance, their lights flashing. An officer got out, saw Luca, and nodded. "Mr. DeSantis," the officer said, "looks like you found a gas leak. We'll take it from here." Luca just nodded. "Make sure the debris is cleared." The officer looked at me, then at the child in Luca's arms. He didn't ask a single question. He just turned and started directing his partner. Paid off. Bought and sold. Just like that. The realization made me sick, but I was too grateful to care. Back at the penthouse, I refused to let Emily out of my sight. She was exhausted, terrified, but miraculously unharmed. Luca had a doctor, his doctor, waiting. He checked her over in the master suite and gave her a mild sedative to help her sleep. "She's fine," Luca said, standing in the doorway of the bedroom, watching me stroke her hair as she drifted off. "She stays here, with you. It's the only place I can guarantee her safety." For the next few days, the penthouse became a strange, temporary home. Luca's fortress became Emily's castle. The terror of her ordeal faded, replaced by a child's resilience. I woke one morning to the smell of something burning. I ran to the kitchen, my heart pounding, only to find Luca DeSantis, the most feared man in New York, standing over a smoking skillet in his bare feet and a pair of gray sweatpants. He was trying to make pancakes. "The box," he said, gesturing to a package of mix. It made it look simpler. I laughed. It was a rusty, unused sound, but it was real. I took the spatula from him. "You add the water before you put the batter on the heat. You maniac." We made pancakes. Emily woke up and padded into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes. She stopped, staring at the huge, intimidating man who was now carefully arranging blueberries into a smiley face on her plate. She sat at the massive marble island, swinging her legs. "Do you watch Bluey?" she asked him. Luca looked at me, completely lost. "It's a cartoon," I supplied. He said, looking at Emily. "I am not familiar." "You should be," she said, taking a huge bite. "It's the best." Later that day, I found him in the media room, sitting on the floor with Emily, watching a cartoon about a family of Australian cattle dogs. He was awkward, stiff, but he was there. He was present. I watched him from the doorway, this man of impossible contradictions. He was a killer who saved lives, a monster who picked blueberries off a pancake for my daughter. The peace was broken later that night. We were in the living room, Emily was asleep in the guest room, and I was reading one of his books while he finalized business on the phone. The private elevator doors opened, and Gio stumbled out, flanked by two of Luca's guards. He was a wreck. His face was bruised and swollen, his suit torn. "I told you," Luca said, his voice dropping, the warmth from the kitchen gone. "You have to listen to me, Luca," Gio pleaded, his voice desperate. The men held him, but he strained against them. "This isn't just the Orsinis. This is everyone, the commission. Oh, they're watching. They're saying you're compromised, that you're soft." He spat the word. "You declared war for a maid. You're putting everything at risk for her. You'll lose everything, Luca, if you keep her here." I saw the muscle in Luca's jaw twitch. He walked slowly toward Gio, his hands at his sides. "She's not your concern, Gio," Luca said, his voice flat. "She's everyone's concern. She's a thief, Luca's fist connected with Gio's jaw. It wasn't a fight. It was an execution. A single, brutal punch that echoed in the vast, silent room. Gio crumpled, unconscious before he hit the marble. "Take him out of my city," Luca said to the guards, not even breathing hard, "and send a message. Anyone who touches her, anyone who even looks at her, answers directly to me." He turned. The guards were gone, dragging Gio with them. The line had been drawn, clear and bloody. I was shaking. He was right. Gio was right. I was a weakness. He's right, I whispered, the words catching in my throat. "I'm the thief who started this. I should go." Luca came to me, his face still hard. "Stop." He led me to the sofa, his grip on my arm firm. He sat, not next to me, but across from me. He needed me to see his face. "There's something I need to tell you. Alina," he said, his voice low. "The night you took the money, I knew. I knew before you even made it to the elevator." My stomach clenched. "What? How?" "I have cameras. I saw you in the study. I saw you hesitate. I saw you break." I stared at him, confused. "But you let me go. You didn't stop me." "No. I had my men follow you. I had to know why. When they told me you went to the hospital, that you paid the deposit for your daughter. I replaced the money." The confession hung in the air between us. He had known. From the very beginning, he had been testing me. You let me," I whispered. "You let me think I had gotten away with it." "I let you save your daughter," he corrected softly. "I wanted to see what you would do, who you really were." The shame washed over me, hot and suffocating. I bent over, burying my face in my hands. "I'm so sorry. Luca, I was desperate. I never meant... I just wanted to save my baby." "Shh." He was beside me now, kneeling on the expensive rug. He pulled my hands away from my face. "Alina, look at me." I did. His eyes were dark, but all I saw was a deep, profound honesty. "That money," he said. "It was nothing. It was paper. It meant power. It meant control. But you and Emily, you mean something real. You showed me something real." He didn't just forgive me. He understood me. He had seen the very worst part of me, my desperation, my theft, and he hadn't turned me away. He had protected me. "That money meant power," he repeated, his voice rough. "But you and Emily, you mean everything." The last wall inside me crumbled. This wasn't gratitude. This wasn't fear. This wasn't just physical desire. It was love. Terrifying, complicated, all-consuming love. I leaned in and kissed him. This time, there was no hesitation, no fear. It was a raw, emotional flood. It was all the weeks of terror, of gratitude, of longing pouring out of me. It was no longer about guilt or protection. He responded instantly, his mouth claiming mine, his hands tangling in my hair, pulling me closer. It was a kiss of equals, a kiss of survivors. He lifted me from the sofa, and I wrapped my legs around his waist. Never breaking contact, he carried me to the bedroom, his steps sure and steady. He laid me on the bed, and this time, there was no gentle exploration. This was a storm we had both been holding back. Our clothes came off in a desperate, tangled hurry. His hands were everywhere, not just gentle, but hungry, possessive. He touched me as if he was trying to imprint himself on my skin, and I clung to him, meeting his intensity with my own. This was not about seduction. It was about survival. It was about two broken people finding the one thing that made sense in a world of violence and lies. His touch was firm, his movements sure. A rhythm that was both new and ancient. It was raw and honest and breathtaking. He was no longer the boss, and I was no longer the maid. We were just Luca and Alina, and in that moment, we were the only two people in this world. The days that followed my confession were a strange, surreal dream. I was no longer a ghost, I was a fixture. I still had my cleaning duties, but they were confined to Luca's private quarters, a sprawling space that was larger than any home I had ever lived in. He was there often, a silent, brooding presence at his massive desk, the phone to his ear, his voice a low, commanding rumble of Italian I couldn't understand. He was dismantling his life for me. I knew it, even if he never said the words. I saw the men who came and went, hard men with old eyes, men who looked at me with open curiosity or veiled contempt. They were his capos, his lieutenants. He was giving them orders, divesting, cutting ties. It was like watching a king voluntarily break his own crown. "You cannot just quit," I said to him one evening, after Emily was asleep in the guest room he'd had converted into a child's bedroom. He looked up from a ledger, his face etched with weariness. "It is not a job. Alina, it is a blood oath. You do not quit. You cut yourself out." He was trying to do just that. He was liquidating assets, transferring accounts, and for every string he cut, another seemed to appear. The air in the penthouse grew thick and heavy, like the moments before a thunderstorm. "He's angry," I whispered, watching him pace the length of the long window overlooking the city. "He's not angry," Luca corrected, his voice tight. "He is insulted. The commission, the old men who believe they own me. They see you, a woman, and our situation as a betrayal of their code." "Because I was a maid? Because I'm not Italian?" He turned to me, his dark eyes intense. "Because I chose you. Because I chose this." He motioned around the room, at the new, softer touches. Emily's drawings taped to the fridge, her small pink sneakers by the door. They see it as weakness. They think a family makes a man soft. They are wrong. It makes him specific. Specific? It gives him one thing to protect. Instead of 100 things to control, it makes him more dangerous. But his danger was not enough to stop the whispers. The call came late. Luke and I were in the media room, a movie playing on the enormous screen. Emily asleep on his chest. It was a domesticity so profound, so utterly normal, it felt like a fantasy. Then Luca's private phone, the one I never saw him use, vibrated on the table. He looked at the number and his entire body went rigid. He gently lifted Emily's head, placed her next to me on the sofa, and stood. He walked to the far end of the room before answering. "What?" I couldn't hear the other side, but I saw the color drain from Luca's face. His hand clenched into a fist. "Where?" he said, his voice a low growl. "When?" He listened, his jaw tight. "He's dead. He made his choice. Get everyone." No, it is too late. They are already here." He hung up. The silence in the room was absolute. "Alina," he said, his voice terrifyingly calm. "Take Emily. Go to my bedroom, now." "Luca, what is it?" It was Gio. He made a call to the Orsinis. He gave them the codes. The penthouse is compromised. Just as he spoke, the lights went out, plunging the world into a disorienting, sudden blackness. Only the blue-white emergency lights in the hall flickered to life, casting long, monstrous shadows. "Luca!" I screamed. Emily woke with a wail. I scooped her up. Luca was already moving, pulling me toward the master suite. "It is fine. Tesoro," he said, his voice for me. Not her. We're just changing rooms. The first gunshots were not loud, like in the movies. They were sharp, contained cracks. The sound of his reinforced glass finally giving way. In here. He shoved us toward his dressing room. He pressed his palm against a blank section of the wall. A panel slid open with a hydraulic hiss, revealing a small room lined with steel, a panic room. "Get in," he ordered. "No, I'm not leaving you." I clutched Emily, who was sobbing into my neck. "You are not leaving me," he said, his voice iron. "You are protecting our daughter." He kissed Emily's head. "Be brave for Mommy. Piccolina." He pushed us inside. The room was small, with a single bench and a bank of security monitors, all of them now live. I saw our own hallway, filled with men in dark tactical gear, moving like wolves. "Luca!" I screamed, turning to him. He was still in the doorway, a pistol in his hand that seemed to have appeared from nowhere. "It will be fine. Alina, this door is rated for a bomb. Stay inside. Do not open it. Do not open it for anyone but me." "Luca, no." "I love you," he said, his eyes meeting mine. It was the first time he had said it. He slammed the heavy steel door shut, and I heard the thud of the locks sealing us in. I scrambled to the monitors, my heart a trapped bird. Emily was crying, but I could not hear her. All I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears and the muffled sounds of war from the other side of the wall. I saw him. He was not one man. He was a force. He moved with a brutal, economic grace I had only glimpsed in the alley. 2 men came around the corner. He did not hesitate. He shot them both, 2 precise shots, and moved on, using his own furniture for cover. It was a ballet of death. He was outnumbered. They were pouring in from the main elevator, which should have been locked. Gio had truly given them everything. I watched, helpless, as he took a bullet to his shoulder. He staggered, but he did not go down. He spun, firing back, taking down the man who shot him. He was retreating, step by step, back toward the panic room, back toward us. "Mommy, I'm scared," Emily wept, clinging to my leg. It's okay, baby, it's okay," I whispered, my eyes glued to the screen. He was almost at the door, and he was bleeding badly now, his left arm hanging uselessly. 3 more men appeared at the end of the hall. He raised his gun, but it clicked empty. He was defenseless. The first shot hit him in the chest. He went down, a look of pure, agonizing shock on his face. I screamed. I lunged for the door, my hand on the release panel. "Do not open it for anyone but me." I looked at the monitor. He was on the floor, trying to crawl, leaving a smear of blood on the white marble. One of the men, a tall man in an expensive suit, not tactical gear, walked slowly toward him. He kicked Luca's gun away and then kicked him in the stomach. Luca curled in on himself, groaning. "This is the end. DeSantis," the man's voice was tinny over the speaker. "The commission is tired of your sentimentality. This is for breaking the rules." He raised his pistol. "No!" I shrieked. I slapped the red emergency release button. The heavy steel door hissed and began to slide open. The man in the suit turned, his face a mask of surprise. "Alina, no!" Luca choked out, blood on his lips. "Run!" But I wasn't running. I had grabbed the heaviest thing in the room, a small fire extinguisher, and I ran at the man, screaming, and swung it with all my strength. I hit his gun arm, a snap of bone. He roared in pain, his shot going wide, shattering a vase. I raised it again, but a hand grabbed my hair and yanked me back. I fell, skidding across the floor. The man in the suit was on his knees, clutching his broken arm. He was breathing hard, his eyes black with hate. "The maid," he spat. "You would die for him? He is a monster." "And you are not?" I cried, scrambling to my feet. "This is business. Putana, you are not part of the deal." "What deal?" Luca's voice was a whisper from the floor. He was trying to push himself up, but he was too weak. "Oh, you didn't know?" The man in the suit, the syndicate leader, stood up, his good hand reaching inside his jacket. "We offered her a trade. Your life, for hers. We just got word." She said yes. My blood went cold. What are you talking about? This morning, he sneered. A call to your hospital. A simple choice. Come to us. And we let your boss and his brat live. You refused. You chose him. So, you all die. It was a lie. A trick. But it had worked. They had used me to get to him. You should have stayed a ghost, the man said. He pulled out a new pistol. He aimed it. Not at Luca. At me. No, Luca roared. I saw the flash. I braced for the impact, for the pain, but it never came. Luca was on his feet. He had launched himself across the floor, tackling the leader, ignoring his wounds. The force of it sent them both crashing into the wall. The gun went skittering across the floor. They rolled, a tangle of limbs. Luca was weaker, bleeding, but he was fighting with a primal ferocity I had never seen. He was not a man anymore. He was an animal, protecting his den. Emily, get in the room! Lock the door! I screamed, pulling her out of the doorway. No, Mommy! Luca was on top of the leader, his hands around the man's throat. The man was clawing at Luca's face, at his shoulder wound. Alina! Luca choked, his voice strangled. The panic room, the side panel. Now. I ran inside. I didn't know what I was looking for. I slammed my hand on the wall. A small compartment opened. A single silver pistol was inside. A lady's gun, small, light. I ran back out. The leader had flipped Luca over. He was on top, his own hands now at Luca's throat. Luca's face was turning purple. I aimed the gun, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold it. Get off him, I screamed. The leader looked up. He laughed. You gonna shoot me, little maid? I pulled the trigger. The sound was deafening. The leader's body went stiff. His eyes widened in surprise. A small, dark hole appeared in the center of his white shirt. He looked down at it, confused. Then he fell backward, landing heavily on the marble. Silence. The apartment was still. The alarms were blaring, but the fighting was over. Luca. I ran to him. He was breathing in shallow, wet gasps. The bullet he took from me was high in his chest. Blood was everywhere. You shot him? He whispered, a faint, bloody smile on his lips. Don't talk, I cried, ripping a piece of my shirt, pressing it to the wound. Don't you dare die on me. Luca DeSantis. He grabbed my wrist, his grip surprisingly strong. They will come back. The commission. This is not over. I'll call the police, an ambulance. No, he shook his head, wincing. No police. My phone, my pocket. I fumbled, my hands covered in his blood, and pulled it out. He unlocked it with his thumb. Call Angelo, he gasped. Tell him the garden is dead. That's all. Tell him. I did. The man on the other end, Angelo, just said, I understand. I'm on my way. We're faking our deaths. Alina, Luca whispered, his eyes closing. It's the only way. A fire. They'll find what they expect to find. Angelo will handle it. Luca, stay with me. Stay with me, I begged, holding his face. He's right, a voice said. I looked up. Gio was standing in the doorway, his face a map of bruises. He held a gun. You, I whispered. I tried to warn him, Gio said, his voice heavy with a terrible sadness. He looked at Luca, his boss, his family, bleeding out on the floor. He didn't listen, he never listened, but he was right. They are monsters, and they would have killed the girl. He looked at me. He used his last favor, not for himself, for you, for the child. I'm here to help. Help? I spat. You did this. No, he said. I did not. I told them where he was. I thought they would talk. I thought they would force him to see reason. I did not know they would. I did not know Falcone would order a slaughter. He knelt by Luca's side. I'm sorry, boss. Luca's eyes fluttered open. He looked at Gio, and he didn't speak. He just nodded. It was a sign of forgiveness. Angelo is on his way, I said. He said to say the garden is dead. Gio nodded. Good. That's the signal. Go to your daughter, Alina. This part you should not see. 6 months later, I learned what that meant. We were in Maine, a small, gray, windswept town where the ocean was always angry and the fog rolled in thick. We were not the Marlowes. We were not the DeSantises. We were the Sullivans. I was Anna. He was Leo. Emily was just Emily. The house was small, the paint peeling. It was the most beautiful place I had ever seen. Emily was on the beach. Her hair, which had started to grow back in soft, dark curls, was wild in the wind. She was laughing, chasing the sandpipers. She was healthy. She was alive. I stood on the porch, a thick wool sweater pulled around me, and watched her. The cold, salt air was clean. It was the first clean air I had ever breathed. I heard the back door open. Luca, Leo, came out. He walked with a limp now. The wounds he had taken were deep. The surgeons Angelo had found in a back alley in Montreal had saved his life. But he would never be the man who moved like a panther again. He was human. He stood next to me, sliding his arm around my waist. He didn't say anything. We just watched our daughter. "She looks happy," he said, his voice quiet. "She is," I said, leaning my head on his shoulder. It was still a strange, new miracle to feel this safe. "We are." He reached into his pocket. "I have something for you." I turned. I was expecting nothing. What was there to give? He opened his hand. In his palm was a small, worn bracelet. It was made of cheap plastic beads and knotted string, the kind kids make at camp. Emily had made it for him in the safe house, in the long, dark weeks while he recovered and Angelo made us disappear. "It is not a diamond, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I cannot give you the things I used to. The penthouse, the money, it is gone. Gio is running what's left. The commission is in chaos. We are dead to them." He took my hand and placed the small bracelet in my palm. "This is all I have left. Alina, this is our family now. If you'll still have me." I looked at the bracelet. I looked at his face, at the new scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. I looked at his eyes, the same dark, intense eyes. But the coldness was gone, replaced by a warmth that was just for me. I did not need a ring. I did not need a promise of wealth. I had what I'd always wanted. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, I will have you." He smiled, a real, genuine smile that reached his eyes. He leaned in and kissed me, and it was not a kiss of passion or desperation or fear. It was a kiss of promise, of peace. It tasted of salt and coffee and home. We heard a small pair of feet running up the wooden steps. "Mommy, Leo, look!" Emily burst onto the porch, her cheeks red from the wind, holding up a perfect spiraled whelk shell. Luca reached down and scooped her up with his good arm, settling her on his hip. She wrapped her arms around his neck. He looked at me, his other arm finding its way back around my waist, pulling me in. We stood there, the three of us, a strange, broken, and perfect little family, looking out at the endless, open ocean. The world saw a monster, a ghost, but I saw my protector. I saw her father. I saw the man who had been reborn in the fire, all for us. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey with Alina and Luca. I truly hope you enjoyed the story. It means the world to me that you spent this time here. If you liked their story, please consider subscribing to Mafia Romance Stories for more. I would love to know what you thought. Please leave a comment below. Let me know where you are listening from, and share your favorite part of the story. Your feedback helps more than you know. Until next time.